Hello, everyone. This is Josh Carr with The Real Angle, and today we're speaking with Amol Sarva of Aikito.co. How are you doing today?
Hey, hi. Happy to be here.
Good. Happy to have you. Um, this is always a pleasure. First off, I just want to compliment you on your background. It's always nice to have someone whose background is not a blank white wall. Nothing really makes me feel like I'm doing an interrogation video more than the blank white wall look, but
Yes, thank you for
nonetheless.
that.
No,
It's
no,
uh it's there for you.
there you go.
I
Hey,
don't get to look at it.
yeah, no, that's true. In the age of Zoom, we all have to worry about what's behind us. So I always like to start with the basics. I always give out the web address because invariably someone will email me. It's Aikito.co. That's Aikito.co. So let's start with the basic stuff. What is Aikido and when did you start it?
Sure. Aikito is a company that I co-founded a couple of years ago. It's about 18 months ago that we launched it after building Knotel. That was one of my biggest biggest companies ever. I'm an entrepreneur and I've started a bunch of companies over time. Um, but Knotel was a flexible office company that we built it over 4 or 5 years to be, 10 countries, 5 million square feet, hundreds of millions in revenue. It got acquired by Newmark during COVID. And shortly after that, I was thinking of different problems to solve and experiences I had that might inspire the next big thing. And Aikido comes from that experience. Aikito's a platform for construction. If you are a commercial user, commercial tenant, some kind of business doing something, you
Sure.
probably need a place to do it in. And when you sign that lease, you are taking on a construction project. So Aikido is a platform that lets you turnkey that project, find the people to get it done, supervise them, and deliver it. It's kind of a digital owner's rep. When a project is a little bit smaller, it's not $100 million project, it's a $500,000 project. It's still important, but you may not be able to put a full-time person against it to supervise the whole thing for you. You end up doing it yourself as the business owner usually.
Right.
If you're building a cafe or a medical office or something. So Aikido lets you turnkey it, find great vendors, get the job done efficiently, sustainably, because the platform builds in some logic to make sure that the RFP you're putting out is asking the right questions
Sure.
and a high quality outcome.
And I mean, look, I mean, I'm a landlord, and I mean, I've definitely been on the other side of this conversation where I've tried to lease to smaller tenants, and they have no idea how to do a build out because why would they? Because they're opening a hair salon, and the best answer I've always had to them is some generic, well, do you know a contractor? Do you have a friend? Call Bob. And then they're kind of on their own because obviously as the landlord, I don't really have the time or the patience to go build them a hair salon, and that's not really what I do. So yeah, no, I definitely see the need in the market for it. Um,
I mean,
so
that thing that you just said it's such a vivid, it's a disaster, right? As soon as you hand off to that customer, that tenant,
sure,
I mean, they're betting their business on it. They're betting a lot of money out of pocket on that build out. And they're betting all that on just like a random recommendation from one or two people. Like you would never do that for a business critical decision. And tenants end up doing that because they're just not experts on build out. And so there's really the lack of a marketplace and a transparent platform to discover and evaluate people's track record and quality just in selecting. So Aikido is that, you say, hey, I want to do this, and we will match you from a curated list of different vendors. And
right.
then the next step is going to be when you have to manage it, because then your headaches begin, right? Once you've started the project.
Now from a let me understand your business, what Aikido does from a pricing standpoint. So how does your business make money? Like what's your involvement in this process?
For the tenant who's doing the build out, so we're not charging you anything. We're just helping you present yourself more professionally to the right vendors
Sure.
who to motivate them to actually bid on the job, and then helping you supervise them. So that part we do for you for free.
Right.
For the vendors, because we are presenting you better, we are saving them a ton of time in finding clients to work with, and even processing and assessing what this client wants. Like if you imagine what that first meeting is like for contractors and architects with clients, so many of those meetings are, hey, here's what I'm thinking about and want to do. Here's my vision. I mean, it's if you're an expert in projects, like you're
Right.
wasting a lot of time listening to someone who has not really prepared. When a client shows up with a very well spec'd and data driven RFP with a
Right.
realistic timeline, realistic budget, realistic outlines for what needs to be done, that vendor is saving a ton of time by bidding on it when it comes through Aikito. And so they give us a bounty for the projects that they win on the platform.
Got it. Okay, so you're for lack of a better word, you're lead origination. You're finding them leads, you're making the connection, and that makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense. I mean, because customer acquisition, yeah, I mean, most contractors, customer acquisition is they drive around in a truck and they have a phone number on the side of the truck and they hope people call. Like it's not a
And they spend a lot of their time, yeah, the principals of the business are spending a lot of their time every week meeting, kissing frogs, so to speak, just
Mhm.
meeting deals that don't go anywhere.
Right.
And they probably don't spend budget on it, but it's like the biggest part of their day is hustling to try to go find deals.
They could literally do anything else with that time. Yeah, no, no. And look,
Mhm.
I again, not to speak too much about my personal experience, but it's always amusing to me what tenants do and don't understand is a big ask. Like they don't because they're not construction people, so they don't understand what anything costs. Frankly, they just have no idea. They have no idea. So, well, that makes a lot of sense. So, how big's your team now?
We're about a dozen people um, at Aikido. We are a mostly digital operation, right? We're building a platform that lets you do all of this from your phone or online. And we've done several dozen projects now, or brought them onto the platform, and they're kind of underway. Um, and they're big, like each individual. So, in the world of the internet, or so for example, with Knotel, when we were building that, in the first year or two, we had 20 or 30 clients. So, like you compare it to consumer-oriented internet type companies, it's a smaller group, but every one of them is spending a lot of money and doing a lot of stuff with us. And that's true also for Aikito. So these are multi-million dollar projects. They're all in the New York region. We
Okay,
focused in that market initially, but it's a huge variety of different stuff. There's like health and wellness. There's hospitality, food and beverage. So it's like people are building paddle clubs and pickleball and social clubs and new restaurant concepts and medical offices and veterinary. We've got a whole wide
sure.
variety of different
There's
people.
sadly, it seems I can't go a week without someone mentioning the word pickleball. So good to good to hear that pickleball has worked its way into yet one more conversation. Um, no, but but yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to ask about the market, and so you're focused on New York right now. I guess the logic is, it's a big market, and you start here, and then you want to expand nationally, I assume.
Yeah, the New York market's about as tough as any market you'll get to. It happens to be that's where we built Knotel, and we have a lot of awareness and expertise around the market here. A bunch of the Knotel team is involved with Aikido as well, and uh, we just have a lot of sort of reputation and expertise in the New York market. But it's about 10% of the U.S. economy, actually, the New York region. And as we start, and we've got a waiting list of clients in some different cities, but we're trying to deliver the first 10 to 20 million worth of projects just in the New York market before we start expanding.
Yeah, and and just like when did you start? When was the
Uh,
or I should say when did you start taking on clients? I guess would be maybe a better way of putting it.
right, we started. We did our first project a year ago. Started the first project a year ago, and about 6 months ago, we started really ramping up and doing multiple projects. So
Interesting.
initially, we were building the platform, putting the team together, and now the team has been formed and executing. We did the first few projects very carefully and slowly to make sure, and there were some false starts figuring out, exactly what's the value proposition and how does it all work. But now the thing is now it's really humming. I mean, people are coming to us without us ever having contacted them. Folks have heard about Aikido. They go to Aikido, they type in, "Hey, I'm building a new, membership club, and it's in this address, and I need no, 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 no," and the whole thing is getting rolling. And it's like a dream that you can just stamp out new locations for your business sitting at your computer because
Right.
it has never been like that before.
No, it's true. Construction management. I mean, it's a job. And it takes work. No, it's fair enough. So let me flip it around a little bit. What clients, like what kind of clients are not right for you? Is it a size issue? Once they get to a certain size, is it just they take it in house and they just do it themselves? Like where do you, like what's your sweet spot, if you will?
The well, we don't do residential, so Aikido is for
Okay,
commercial.
fair
There's
enough.
tons of, these like sites to go get like a house painter or someone to improve your, like, replace your bathroom or
Yeah, I
something.
think of Angie's List or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. That's the
Mm-hmm.
immediate thing. Sure.
Yeah, home advisor. And then, there's a new
Right.
generation of pretty cool companies in residential, like block renovation, which will, upgrade your kitchen. And I think that stuff in resi is pretty cool. Commercial is more complex because things are always different. Our clients will be doing, one will be doing a coffee shop, and then the next one will be doing a nursery school or a short-term
Different
rental or something.
mechanicals, different electric. Yeah, it's different
Yeah, so the
requirements.
process is very common, that you got to go from, your initial RFP through bids and leveling through the project plan. Like, that stuff is very common, and so our platform keeps clients on the right workflow. But it's not resi. It's also not today. It's not designed for large scale enterprises. If somebody's already done 20 or 30 locations, they've already got a real estate operations team that's sitting somewhere and trying to like source their vendors and do that stuff. We'll get to that someday, where we're a service that helps large players work nationally as they're moving through markets. The perfect client for Aikido is somebody who's got one or two locations. They've seen how tough it is to build that one out, and they don't want to repeat that nightmare. So as they expand and they're getting to the second, third, fourth location, they'd like to be able to have a partner to look after that expansion,
Right. And then
which
in
means
theory,
finding the right vendors for that location, who are the
right.
contractors and designers you're going to use in this new neighborhood or this new city, and then managing it. So you got to find them and manage them, and then pay them at the right time. So finding, managing, and paying is, what construction management is all about.
Right. Yeah. Paying them for work they've done, not, yeah. No,
Actually
I
done, yeah, exactly.
yeah. No, no, it's a process. It requires people to actually go out there and look at things. So, no, so this is so you've been a serial entrepreneur, which is great. And I love to talk to serial entrepreneurs because it's about creation, if you will. So, long-term vision for the business. You keep growing it. I mean, like you sold Knotel, which, is, you know, I've heard of you. I heard of it. It was a sizable transaction. Um, for you personally, is this the kind of business that, like, are you done? Is this the kind of thing that you want to grow and run, and this is what you're going to run? Or do you have is it more like I'm going to get this thing up and running and I want to continue to be a serial entrepreneur? This is more like a
Well,
life
I'm the
question,
I'm
if
the
you will.
chair of Aikido, and we have a wonderful team that's driving the business forward.
Okay,
Folks that I've known for years. And when we were starting the company, I was thinking really intentionally about trying to draw from my experience, like some of the best people I had ever worked with. Some of them come from Knotel, and some actually come from WeWork. Some come from other companies that I had come to know over the last 5 or 6 years.
sure.
And my partners on that company are amazing. And I think we're going to build a huge business. For me personally, having built a bunch of different companies over the years, this last few years, I've been doing some company creation. So Aikido has been part of that. And I've launched a venture fund called LifeX.
Okay.
And I'm in a chapter now, I think, of my personal journey, where I've gone from building from scratch companies that sometimes get quite big and leading them, to now working with entrepreneurs and helping them as a partner, as a backer, to build their companies. And you never
Sure.
know how an individual company is going to go, and then there's certainly ups and downs in a company's life. Like, there are times when things are super tough, and there are times of just like sublime ecstasy when you're on top of the world.
When
And
everything
that's what's
works.
really fun about startups.
Yeah, no, and that gets me to probably my next question, which is unexpected surprises. I mean, you're still in the same general space, but obviously running this is not like running a co-working business. What would you say your biggest surprises were, for good or for bad?
Well, with Aikido, when we were getting started on the business and dreaming it up, we're dreaming it up in like 2021, so about 2 years ago.
Sure.
And as we were dreaming it up, we were still in the depths of COVID.
Yeah, I
And
was about to say everyone's at home. Sure.
yeah, and we were thinking, all right, well, what does the future look like? And how are we going to rebuild? COVID was a real estate apocalypse for commercial, certainly. Maybe for residential, it was a different kind of roller coaster.
Sure.
But in rebuilding post COVID, we were making a few bets. So if we're going to create this construction marketplace business that helps you find contractors, what are you going to be building? And so we were very surprised. I mean, we thought people would be rebuilding offices by now, and they're not. Like it's who knows when that will be restored or if it will.
Right.
But for the time being, it's like forget about it. Like forget office. It's not my problem. If I were an office owner, I'd be much more concerned about it. But for our Aikito business, office is irrelevant, and that was a big surprise. The other thing that's a big surprise is just how much in real life social experiential stuff people are building. Hadn't thought about it. It's kind of obvious now, but the idea that people are building like social clubs and wellness spas where you all
Right.
hang out and do cold plunges, and like these are all surprising and interesting developments post COVID. I
Well,
just
apparently we're all lonely and we want to see other people. It's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, no, I laugh about it because I have kids and it's like we pre-COVID, everyone was telling the kids to put the darn phones down, and then during COVID, we're like, okay, remember what we said about screen time? Ignore all of that. Just stare at the screen all the time.
yeah.
It'll be fine, you know.
Anything
And
to get you through it, right? Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
those
and
are big
now
surprises in the
yeah,
post-COVID world, and there's more surprises beyond that, right? Like the market and macro cycle has been insane. Construction inflation, interest rates, and then the desperation of landlords to reposition a lot of property. Like they need their clients to be successful in these spaces, their tenants. So
yeah,
that's a real tailwind for Aikido. And I think also the sustainability and climate stuff's a big tailwind. I mean, people want to open spaces efficiently and minimize their footprint. They don't really know how to do it. Contractors would like to be able to deliver that. And that's a real opportunity for value add with the Aikido platform. It is when that RFP goes in there and that project plan is being formed, like we are able to present to the client a whole bunch of opportunities for minimizing energy use and operational cost over time, which is making it a lower carbon footprint project. And so just automatically we're cleaning the built environment. Buildings and real estate are almost 40% of carbon production globally. Like if we're going to tackle climate change, we're going to have to basically rebuild all the real estate we've ever built.
no, you're dead on right. It's funny because I mean that's a stat I've heard before because I'm also in the industry, and it's like everyone talks about electric cars and electric cars are great, but like yeah, I mean if you actually want to talk about impact, buildings are mammoth. Like it's just it's a big number, and it does seem to me, and maybe just for my 2 cents, it does seem to me that the conversations about sustainability have now become much more mainstream. It seems it's a lot less about your politics and about where you live. It's just everyone's like, yeah, we should do that. Like it's more just it's almost like saying we should have fire sprinklers. Like, of course we should have sprinklers. Like that's just people have sprinklers. It's just part of the conversation, which
Yes,
is what you
yes.
want it to be, where it's just mainstreamed. So speaking about macroeconomics, because you did touch about on macro issues, um, how have macroeconomic conditions affected you, or is it not, or is it just simply your construction management platform? And I mean, obviously you grow faster or slower based on the construction industry, but has that affected you? Like supply chain stuff is still a
Yeah,
mess. How's that affecting you?
yeah. It's very relevant to our work. The cost of construction is higher than anybody expected on every project, and it's a reason you need us. You can't just be cavalier. You should be using all the expertise available to you to get the right pricing and to make sure you don't blow your budget. So that's one it's an unfortunate reality, but it is helping drive clients to Aikido. It's a reason to use Aikido. And the other bit is um, interest rates are they're really putting pressure on all players in commercial as well. Um, Money is dear for folks, and
Sure.
the construction budget for a tenant is one of the few things in all of real estate that is not financed. it's cash out of pocket. Like when a landlord provides a work letter, sometimes that's coming from the mortgage, the good news money, and certainly every other aspect of real estate is leveraged. But the one thing that you do in cash on day one when you sign a lease as a tenant is you lay out both your deposit and then the construction for the build out.
Right.
It's very so in a moment where money is dear and construction costs are ballooning, people ought to be as careful as they can be with their build out
Fair
plan.
enough. It's a real number, and yeah, and if the landlord's not writing a work letter, they're given free rent, which is effectively the same
Yeah, and
thing.
from the landlord side, it means you're going to sit on more vacancy. Like the mindset that you had when you first mentioned, like, hey, when you sign a tenant, you're like, hey, man, I'm not your construction guy. Here's a name for you. Like
Right.
that is kind of the reality for how much you can promise to help your tenant. But if you were able to help them more, it would help you
You
too.
want to
Because
help them. No,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, when I said that, it's not that I'm trying to be a jerk to them. I do
yeah,
want them to succeed. Of course, I want my tenants to succeed. I want them to
yeah,
be rich and prosperous because if nothing else, then they pay me more rent. I mean, that's great.
yeah,
But at the same
yeah,
time, I can't be meeting their contractor at 6 in the morning. Like that's not. I have
yeah,
my own business to run. No, it's
yeah.
it's interesting. I would imagine, definitely I understand why you get clients who need to build out space. I imagine also some of the pitch could be even to just landlords to say, hey, do you have tenants that need help? Because that's a nice service. I mean, to be honest, not to make
Yeah,
myself a
that's the thing
client
that
on this
hasn't yet
call,
started
but
happening for us. That's something that I'm looking forward to. So I'm glad that you're mentioning that. I think that landlords ought to be recommending us to their new tenants, as should brokers, because the reason deals don't get done is a tenant looks at a space and they're like, oh man, it's going to be too tough for me to get into the condition I want. Or I need this much unrealistic number from the work letter or the TI. And if you
yeah,
want to solve those problems, equip your tenant with an advisor that can get them a quote and a budget and Aikito like works anywhere. It's completely
sure.
digital. It's super fast. Like
No,
it
yeah, I
seems,
mean,
yeah,
any retail broker should just be able to flip a business card to them and be like, "Hey, here's
yeah,
someone you might consider calling." As long as you're already calling Bob the contractor, call these guys too, and
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it's better than Bob. So, I guess final question, closing thoughts, future of the business. Like, where do you guys want to be in 3 years, 5 years? Like, what's the vision, if you will?
We'd like to make it really easy to do build outs, and part of that is to just lubricate the whole commercial transactional ecosystem. It takes too long to fill vacant spaces because people are sitting around touring in person, thinking about doing feasibility studies, trying to start the build out, stop the build out, long delay. It's just burning a lot of expense and vacancy.
Sure.
And this is our this is our chance to rebuild the commercial real estate world the right way. Every time a tenant turns over is your chance to upgrade your building a little bit. Bring it a little closer to being carbon neutral. Upgrading some of the core systems, and if you get that tenant to get it done in the right way, then their business is prosperous, your building is healthy, and so keto is
Yeah.
meant to like smooth out one of the broken bits of real estate land. So our hope,
No.
in this next few years, is to be all across the U.S., clicking away and helping people launch and prosper in their commercial spaces.
Well, look, that's an excellent point because definitely after the tenant leaves, I'm stuck with the build out either way at that point. So yeah, if they put in better materials and I inherit that, that's much better than the option. So definitely appreciate the logic of it, and it's also just nice to hear sustainability be part of the conversation, not just sort of greenwashing, if you will. Excellent. Well, look, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. And for everyone else listening in, again, that's Amol Sarva, Aikito, and that's AIKITO.co. And thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.